Welcome to the Armani Talks YouTube channel. I'm your host, Armani Talks. In this channel, we're discussing communication skills to help you level up your confidence, charisma, storytelling skills, and much more. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to be a more interesting person. What does it mean to be more interesting, Armani? Well, instead of me giving you a definition yet, how about I give you the following example. Imagine that there's 9 people that are wearing white shirts, and there's one person that's wearing a purple shirt. And I ask you, who is the most interesting in this group? Whether you're aware of it or not, your mind is naturally going to gravitate towards the person that's wearing a purple shirt. And I ask you, why? Why did you choose the person that's wearing the purple shirt? You may not have a reason why. You just say something like, well, it's because purple shirt was a little different. Fair. It's because the purple shirt was a little different. And something about the word different resonates a lot with the word interesting. No one says, look at this person, so routine, so normal, what an interesting fellow. They just don't do that. Because for the human psyche, we like differences. We like pattern interrupts. We like connections that are formed, which naturally seem counterintuitive, but they're still able to be formed. That's what the interesting person understands, whether they're aware of it or not. Have you ever seen a spider web? Have you ever taken the time to look into the spider web and see its intricacies? I suggest you do the next time you see a spider web, because when you look at the web, you'll notice how intricate it is. You see that little spider weaving around, and what that spider is doing is turning its simplicity into a huge level of complexity, where as the human, when we're observing it and we're taking the time to look at it, we wonder, wow, where is the spider getting this design? Who is guiding the spider? How is the spider such a naturally great engineer? Well, we could all be the spiders for our life in terms of becoming more interesting. And that's exactly what we're going to do in today's episode. We're going to web and weave our life in order to produce something that cannot be duplicated. And when we speak from here on out, others want to listen because we become that purple shirt rather than all those other boring white shirts. If you're ready and excited for today's episode, be sure to drop that like for me right on below. Leonardo DaVinci. When I bring up his name, what's the very first thing that you think of? If you're like most people, you're going to say painter, artist. And that's like most people. But if I had a magic wand and I could bring Leonardo back from the dead, and I asked Leonardo, what do you consider yourself? He's going to say, engineer. Wait. Engineer? Leo was an engineer? He was, and he was a damn good one at that. He was such a good engineer that most of his designs and innovations were years ahead of his time. And the thing is that he was not only brilliant in a technical field like engineering, he was also brilliant in a creative field like artistry. Now, what the hell do these two worlds have in common? For the average person, they don't see any similarities between these two worlds. But in Leo's world, these two worlds were able to connect, web together, and form the interesting personality that we know as Da Vinci. That's the interesting person number 1. What about Benjamin Franklin? I remember when I was in 2nd grade, one of my classmates, Jonathan, he was getting fed up as we were learning about Benjamin Franklin, because it seemed like our teacher was trying to do too much. One minute, she was saying that he was some kind of inventor. Next second, he's a writer. Next second, he's a patriot. Next second, he's a businessman. Eventually, Jonathan got fed up. He said, Miss Shepard, wait, what is Benjamin Franklin exactly? Is he a writer? Is he an inventor? Is he a businessman? Is he a patriot? I mean, what is he exactly? Miss Shepard stops And she says, yes. What do you mean, yes? Says Jonathan. He's all of those, John. You got to understand that. Great people like Benjamin Franklin were capable of doing multiple different things and finding a way to connect them all. And that's exactly what Benjamin Franklin was able to do. You go to the average person and you ask them, what does being an inventor and being a writer have in common? They'd say, well, nothing. But in Benjamin Franklin's world, he was the spider that was able to connect those different worlds, which was able to form his interesting life. So thus far, we've talked about two extremely interesting people from our past. How about we talk about someone from our modern times? Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, for those of us that know him, we know him as one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. Let's be real. And if we break his life down, we see that he's coached people like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe Bryant. We're talking fierce competitors, dogs, pit bulls. So his whole life should have just been engulfed with competition, right? Not quite. Another part of his life seems extremely different. He's interested in meditation, mindfulness, Zen Buddhism, all that kind of stuff. You ask someone else, what does competition and what does meditation have in common? And they may say, nothing. But for a guy like Phil Jackson, he was a spider that was able to connect and weave this nice web that formed his interesting personality and his 11 championship rings. What this goes on to show is that in order to be an interesting person, we need to have certain components. Okay, that's the very first thing. And it's amazing when these components don't seem as though they belong together. Just like the example with Da Vinci, art, engineering, they seem different. Now, as we have these components, we need to find a way to naturally let them emerge. We don't need to consciously do anything. We don't say, all right, let me run some calculations. How can I match the world of meditation with the world of sports? We can do all the conscious stuff later. But in the beginning stages, we gotta let these components naturally merge together. And how do we exactly do that? We do that first by getting the components, and these components are born from our curiosities, our natural curiosities. Not anything that someone says, hey, you have to learn this. That's not a natural curiosity. Or, yo, I need to learn this because it's the hottest thing in the market right now. Otherwise, I'm gonna fall behind. That's not a natural curiosity either. You can still do those things, but don't call those natural curiosities. What is natural? Something that you naturally want to learn for yourself. No one's holding a gun to your head. No one's telling you to learn it. But instead, on your free time, you're just finding ways to learn more about this topic because it interests you. So those are going to be your components. Armani, what if these components are extremely different from one another? All the better. The more different that these components are, the more likelihood that you have of being interesting. Now from there, the more that you work on these different components, naturally, the more that you'll notice that these two worlds are somehow connecting with one another. You're just practicing these two components on its own time, but still, you find that it's naturally connecting together. In context to my life, there's two interests that I've had. One is communication skills, such as public speaking, writing, talking into the camera, that kind of stuff. And another interest has always been engineering, the world of electrical engineering, how to solve problems, critical thinking, computer technology. Now, these two worlds seem extremely different, right? Yeah. But the more that I've worked on the Armani Talks brand, the more that I've seen these two worlds connect with one another. Nowadays, I'm able to get the extremely blurry world of communication skills, the world that's extremely gray, hazy. And I'm able to get black and white frameworks, process of thinking, critical thinking skills, and apply it into the world of communication skills. Most people that follow the Armani Talks brand follow it for logical explanations regarding phenomena in the communication skills world. But here it is, two different worlds that are naturally connecting together. So we want to see how we could do that in context to our life, because that's what makes us unique. There's a big misunderstanding that says that we can only be great at one thing. That's not true. What we realize is that the better that we're becoming at one thing, the easier it is to become great at something else, and something else, to a point where everything is sort of connecting into a system. For Da Vinci, what motivated him was to find that underpinning truth regarding everything. He had this intuition that a lot of knowledge was connected. All the stuff that seems so different around our world today has a lot more similarities than we think. And that's what drove him. That's what allowed him to connect so many different worlds together. So you want to ask yourself how you can be that spider as well. You may have an interest regarding, how people stay hydrated and regarding lamps. In the beginning stages, you may not have any clue how these two worlds are going to connect, and you don't need to. Just keep working on these two interests. Keep finding ways to get better at these two interests. Learn more about hydration. Learn more about lamps. And the more you keep working on them, the more you're going to find some natural connections that the world is presenting to you. And as these connections are being born, you'll notice that you're changing as a person as well. You're accumulating more knowledge. You are making more connections with other people. You are connecting more dots in a creative manner. As this connection is happening, you are changing from a boring person into an interesting person, from a routine person to an unpredictable person. And that right there, this change that's happening, is how we become dynamic like the spider. The spider that's oh so interesting and it's so hard to predict. Be like the spider, become more interesting, and make sure your communication skills follows your story along the way. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want more content like this in regards to psychology, emotional intelligence, and creativity, be sure to sign up for my free daily newsletter in the description box right on below. Thank you for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.